This is the Lutheran Education Podcast, a bi weekly podcast where we explore issues, trends, and events surrounding Christian education with your hosts, Richard Schumacher, Senior Director of Operations at LSCM, and Dr. Tracy Salgado, Director of Special Education at LSCM.
Welcome to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. My name is Richard Schumacher, Senior Director of Operations at LSCM, and we are pleased to welcome back to the podcast once again the District Ed Exec in the Michigan District of the LCMS. Assistant to the President, I guess, is technically the title, but he runs the show there as far as all things education in Michigan for us. Travis Grulke. Travis, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to be here. Thanks. Always love joining you guys.
All right, so just just get it out here. It's the day we're recording this on the day of the start of the NCAA tournament. Travis is in his office, got his Michigan State sweatshirt proudly on today. I'm working from home, but my office is decked out in maize and blue, so
Yes.
got a little bit of that rivalry going here today. Travis, how far you got Michigan State going in your bracket this year?
I've actually got them losing to Illinois in the Final Four.
No kidding.
Yes, yes, yep. Magical run. I think we'll knock off maybe. I got St. John's beating Duke, so I don't think we got to beat Duke. Got St. John's beating them, so we'll see. We'll see.
All right, that's excellent, excellent. I as great as this year has been, I had to ride the horse, and so I've
Yeah,
got the maize and blue cutting down the nets in Indianapolis in 3 weeks. I would feel a lot better about that pick if LJ Kaysen had not
agreed.
torn that ACL. I think that has upset the offensive flow for Michigan, but they got a lot
Yeah,
of players there, and
he was your
if
best
they
guard
can,
for a little while there. Yeah, yeah. He was playing good ball.
yeah, if Michigan can get back to shutting down that defense a little bit, and man, I'm just hoping that having lost the Big Ten teams and the Big Ten refs, maybe that helps to improve the flow of the game, and maybe that helps to get Michigan to bounce back.
Agreed. You got to
So
pick him
well,
as a Michigan fan. If you didn't pick him to win it all, you got problems. You got a great team.
yeah, this year you got to go. You got to go with it this year.
Mhm.
And there's opportunities for them to lose for sure, but
Yeah.
should be a fun 3 weeks of basketball.
Amen.
All right, now that we got the important stuff out of the way, let's get to our conversation here this morning. One of the great things about having you on the podcast, Travis, is just the wide range of topics that you're able to speak to, again, in your role here at Michigan, but also just working with all the different entities outside of the LCMS and synodically, you're pretty well in tune and in touch with a lot of things going on. So why don't we just kind of open it up with talk to us about just anything that's going on right now in Lutheran education that is significant. Where are we at and where are we heading in some things? Just what do you see as important right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously here in Michigan, school choice isn't on the table for us. It's blown up in many other parts of the country. We are hoping that this new, from the big beautiful bill, this scholarship grant and organization stuff can happen. That will be a foot in the door here in the state of Michigan. But we have a governor's race that's vitally important in our state, and we're trying to make that a huge part of the race. Will you or will you not sign on to the scholarship granting organizations here in the state of Michigan? So that will be massive for us, Lutheran education wise, just across our state. As always, it's educators. We've heard some good news at our Concordias that there's some larger freshman and sophomore classes. So hopefully they're going to be sharing some great educators even more here in the coming years. We got a massive amount of retirements, all those things that we've been hearing forever. The good Lord still provides. The harvest is plentiful, laborers are few, but amen. He's given us what we need. We've got a good group of, we have like 10, 11 new administrators here in the Michigan District in our Lutheran schools this year, and looking at probably another 7 or 8 more next year. So that turnover has been significant, but some outstanding people jumping in there. Yeah, just we're blessed with still some solid, strong Christian and Lutheran education here in the state of Michigan.
All right, so I want to touch on that, the SGOs and the vouchers and all those different things through the big beautiful bill, particularly in Michigan, because you're right. We've seen some massive growth. Texas right now is kind of the
Yeah.
the, the big one, with over $1 billion going to be uh, directed back to parents to be able to use toward education for their kids. And again, we're seeing it in other states. Wisconsin's got a pretty flourishing or process. Arizona, Indiana, you can go through the different states and then mention that. And With Michigan, yeah, it does definitely seem to be tied to the governor's race here for November. Now, this isn't even really a partisan thing. It's not a matter of, Democrat versus Republican, although, again, you can look at the different candidates and the ones that have made public statements about it, do follow some party lines to a certain extent. But
Yeah.
if if you were giving your stump speech in terms of why this is good for the state of Michigan, beyond just being good for our schools,
Yeah.
what were the points that you would make toward that? Why is this a critically important thing for us?
Obviously, a huge proponent of school choice, right? I like to say parent choice, that parents can decide a little bit of where some of their dollars are going. This is a small drop in the bucket, $1,700 a family. It's not this massive amount of dollars, but it's a federal tax credit. So there's no money leaving our state in terms of our state taxes and all those kind of things.
Hmm.
So there's no argument there. Also, these dollars aren't just used for non-public school education. Public school students can use it for after-school tutoring and extracurricular, main academic focus areas. So it's a blessing for every student in the state of Michigan to be able to use these dollars as the parents see fit to educate their child in the best possible way. So it's a win-win. Although you're going to hear many other teacher unions and other places say it's taking funds away from us and moving them to non-public schools. That's not the case at all. So anybody can read up on it and be encouraged by it and see it, and just know that this is just another opportunity for parents and families to have a little bit of ways to use dollars to bless their students.
Right, excellent. Again, because that's always the first thing that they you hear about this is that it's taking dollars out of public school districts, but the per pupil allocation is not going to be impacted by
No, not
what's
at all.
being proposed in this. So
Correct.
again, very important for folks just to understand that. And again, not telling anybody how to vote. That's definitely a right that we have as citizens to vote for the candidates that we feel are going to do the best job for us. For whatever reasons, but. Again, really important sort of information that you're sharing there. Great news about the Concordias with the incoming freshman classes
Mhm.
increasing as far as that's concerned. Um, are we seeing with those students coming into the Concordias, is there information being shared about how many of those kids are heading into church work fields as opposed to some of the other fields that the Concordias offer?
Yeah, we set apart to serve as the Synod's initiative to raise up church workers across the board, all church workers, but teachers are a big part of that. And the students that are coming into our Concordia University system, there's many, many more, at least an uptick that we're seeing. We get a debrief from the placement directors every December as ed execs cross Synod, and it's pretty promising. At least we got to have the retention, right? You got a lot of students that come in as freshmen and sophomores and then don't quite finish the program. So the telltale will be in the next 2 years or so. Are we seeing that larger increase of education students in the Lutheran Teacher Diploma program? Are they continuing and are they graduating? That's going to be the key. But all signs point right now that there's a pretty decent uptick. And, we're not going to get back to 1998, where we're graduating 300 kids from our Concordias for Lutheran teaching program. But can we get away from the 48 that we're seeing right now? I mean, this May, we got 48 early childhood through eighth grade teachers that can take calls. High school, there's a few more, but 48 total that can take calls. We got to change that. So can we get back up to 100? Can we double that in the coming years? That would be a massive blessing.
Have there been continued recruitment efforts to reach out to educators who are not synodically trained to consider working in our Lutheran schools? I know at one point in time, I think we'd even discussed that was something that was on the table there. But what sort of efforts do you know of are out there to kind of encourage teachers to, hey, maybe you went into education and for whatever reason the school setting that you're in isn't to your liking and maybe give the Lutheran schools a chance because we've got a unique and perhaps more desirable setting for you.
Yeah. We were actually part of just a pilot program this last winter here, just recently, with Set Apart to Serve. There was 4 districts that were chosen to do like a social media blast, to specific areas about, hey, have you ever thought about teaching in a Lutheran school? And we had, at least in the state of Michigan, close to 500 people at least fill out, hey, can I get some more information?
Mhm.
Um, now, were all those fruitful? Not even close. But was I able to send an email out and to get a couple people to come back and just say, hey, yeah, I might be thinking about some more information. And we've got a way to kind of direct them then to openings, to share some resumes, to vet these people. But the vast majority of people that are filling now our openings aren't rostered workers. We just don't have them. So how are we doing all we can to pour into these individuals about what it means to be in a Lutheran school? And we're blessed with quite a few now retired public school teachers that are in their mid 50s that are amazing educators that still got some life left in them in terms of the education aspect and have stepped into our Lutheran schools. And we're trying to do a better job too of our high school graduates that go on to Michigan State or SVSU or Hope College to to knock on their hearts too if they're in education programs to say, hey, when you graduate, get back into our Lutheran schools because we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that, and with the kids going off to school, my daughter's got a roommate. They attend Grand Valley, and she went into education, but she decided to go to GVSU instead of pursuing one of the Concordias. And so she's worked a lot in Lutheran schools, even while she's there. Done a lot of her field basing type of work in some of the area Lutheran schools. She's got summer jobs in Lutheran schools and early childhood centers. So it won't surprise me if
Yeah.
when she graduates next year that she's looking to jump back in and work in a Lutheran setting and then go back and get that colloquy.
You're gonna remind me. You're gonna send me her name offline here again to email me so I can be in her inbox too to remind her about our great Lutheran schools.
Absolutely, and I will make sure that she lets me know that I get a finder's fee for that position,
Yeah,
so it all
yeah.
works out very well.
Headhunter. Yeah,
The other thought is a lot of the folks that we hire at LSEM for our part-time positions are in that category that you've described. They got their 30 years in the public school
yeah,
setting. They're not done with teaching. They still want to kind of have a finger on the pulse of that, but they're done with the full-time. They're done with the public school. In special ed, they're done with the severe cases that they had to work with.
yep.
I'm thinking of a guy, uh, Larry Tim's his name. He's our LSM teacher up at St. John in Midland.
Well loved.
And
Well loved.
absolutely, and with great reason. He applied for this position. He came to us because he saw the opening at St. John. He had a grandchild who had gone through St. John, and he was so impressed with what the staff and the faculty did there to help his grandchild that he wanted to give back. He wanted to pay it
Yeah,
forward. And I know he's been working with us now 6 years because I handed him his work computer the day before the 2 week shutdown for COVID. So he came in at a very unique time there,
yeah,
and he's going to do this for a year or two, just to, kind of ease into retirement. He's still going strong. He loves it. He absolutely, loves what he's doing. And as you said, they absolutely love him. We love him. It's been a great, great fit. We get his expertise. The school gets the benefit of having a phenomenal resource room teacher, and he's continuing to enjoy what he's doing, but at that part-time pace so he can still do what he wants to do outside of it. So it's
yeah.
great. You're planting seeds for these folks. Maybe
Amen.
they're not ready to make the jump today, but 5 years from now, when they hit retirement, they're going to remember that there's that opportunity, there's that option to be able to move in that direction, and that's exciting.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. Agreed.
All right, so I you don't have to answer this, but I'm going to ask this question anyway. So you take it where you want to go, but
Yeah.
we've kind of crossed some lines here in terms of where Concordia Ann Arbor has gone in terms of the programming that they're offering there, decisions that may or may not be being made about the campus. You see stuff on Facebook here quite a bit, lots of
Yeah.
reporting, lots of rumors and all the rest of that sort of stuff. Um, I'm not looking to do anything, uncover any secrets or kind of, run anybody ragged by any stretch. But as far as higher education goes in the state of Michigan, where do we stand now? What's the next steps for us to be able to serve the kids in our district to the best of their ability so they can have that option if that's what they choose to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the Concordia stuff and Concordia as we know it doesn't exist anymore. Just have the North Campus. Now it's called Concordia, as we know it, it's the North Campus.
Mhm.
And there's no education stuff happening really. There's some grad school stuff. I think some students are finishing up their this year or next in terms of some of their online stuff, but there's no future education students coming out of Concordia Ann Arbor campus. So We've got to do all we can to be looking around other places to get some great Lutheran kids that are in other universities near us because we know the stats, the amount of students that don't want to go more than 150 miles from home for college is rising and rising and rising. So we're going to still lift up, Concordia Chicago and Concordia St. Paul and, all the other Concordias we're going to lift up as great options for our students that want to go into Lutheran education. However, we are also going to try to stay intact with those who decide to go to Michigan State, as I said earlier. My daughter, for instance, she's at Saginaw Valley. She didn't want to go far away from home. And Saginaw Valley was a great option for her. She's going to be in our Lutheran schools in the fall of 2028, teaching middle school somewhere. And she'll do the colloquy route and go that way, but we're going to have more and more students doing that. President Davis, I can probably say this, he's on board with me and many others who think that we need to find a way for our students, like my oldest and others, to take the colloquy while they're in college. Why could they not go through the colloquy program into the online classes? It's all online. There's no face-to-face, so it's all online. Why can't they also do that in tandem with their subjects that they're taking at Saginaw Valley State University? These good Lutheran kids that we know who graduated from our Lutheran high schools, that should be an option for them, but that's not an option currently, and we're going to try to continue to push that narrative.
I love the idea. So many kids are taking like a summer course just to,
Yep.
do a introductory credit. I don't want to spend the big university dollars on a biology class, so I'll do something, at a community college, so that
Yep.
sort of a thing. So I mean, that idea is already there. If it can be compared to that to say, here's something you can be doing uh, in tandem with the coursework that you're taking now, so that way when you do get to graduation day, you have both, albeit in a
Yeah.
less conventional way. But uh,
Hmm.
again, if the goal is to raise up workers for the church for the next generation, then that's a phenomenal way to go about doing it.
Exactly. Open that funnel up even more, especially those kids that we already know, right? I mean, obviously we'd vet them as a district and know who's in the colloquy system that we already currently do right now. We could have that same oversight for our Lutheran kids that we know that are Lutheran members of our congregations to do the exact same thing. Even if they're going to Western University or Central or Hope, it doesn't matter. We could still do that. Yeah.
This is why we've got these folks in charge of our districts and our Senate, because they're handling the stuff and making great decisions and looking to the future and doing all that they can. So again, on behalf of a lot of people, Travis, thanks to you, President Davis, and the many other people who throughout the district and throughout the various districts have worked to continue to forward God's plan through all of this, in spite of a change that I think many of us are saddened to see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we know that God's not done in all of this, and it's just a matter of now moving forward and making it work to the best of everyone's ability, so that
Yep.
His church can be filled and His great commission can be fulfilled.
Yep. Preach it. Preach.
So, next question I've got for you. I have to admit, I was up at the Michigan's Winter Principals Conference, their snow tire conference, a few weeks
Mhm.
back, and I was surprised to hear that there's been some changes, or are some changes going on with school ministry down in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've seen a lot of publicity about that. I don't know that a lot of people even perhaps know that there's some changes that have taken place down there. Um, can you just kind of fill us in on the latest of what's going on with our leaders down in St. Louis for education?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Dr. Freeman, who's been the director of schools for Synod for the last, 4 or 5 years now, he took a call to the South Wisconsin district. He's their new education executive, my counterpart there in the South Wisconsin district. And then Will Van, who was also in that office, took a call to the Rocky Mountain district to be their education executive. So that the school ministry office in Synod is technically vacant right now. Um, there's no NLSA coordinator either. Right now, Dennis Gerke, who's an amazing retired Missouri district ed exec, he's kind of making sure accreditation, along with that accreditation committee, that NLSA is running the way it should and is doing a fantastic job. There's actually a really great tech guy in the Synod office that's making sure all the tech behind the scenes is actually running. And he's been doing a fantastic job with that. Um, we've heard they're down to some final interviews for the director position, And we as ed execs shared just some desires from us. We wrote a joint letter from all 30 plus of us or so that just said, here's some hopes for us for this new director position. And one of those requests was that the ed execs could have a little voice in the interview process. And they're honoring that. And we've got three great ed execs who are going to be this next round of interviews with the final candidates, get a chance to interview them also and weigh in with their thoughts and ideas on that next director position. So we're hoping and praying that our next director of school ministry is someone that's going to have that big picture outlook and who recognizes there's a variety of ways to do ministry across our LCMS and is open to that. And then we need somebody for NLSA. There's tons of dollars that are flowing through accreditation. There should be a person who's in charge of that. That's their main baby, and that's what they do. And then there's hopefully going to be maybe even another person that can be that associate director too, working alongside Alan, especially in the areas of early childhood education and all the other stuff of our Lutheran schools that will be vitally important to be a part of that ministry team.
All right, excellent. So yeah, appreciate the update on that because again, I was blown away by it because
Yeah,
uh, I just hadn't heard any of that news at that point, and I know that I'm not the most plugged in guy across Synod, but I plugged in enough that I was a little surprised and just kind of thought, hey, maybe other people don't know, and just good for
yeah.
us to have that knowledge so we can pray over the process that God will lead our Synod to bring in some men or women to be able to lead that office effectively.
Agreed. Agreed. Yep. Keep praying about that for sure.
And I would be remiss. We're gonna change over the topics to something a little bit different on after the break here. But I'd be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity to put in a plug for Flame. I know that's something that you and the other ed execs here in the Great Lakes area have been doing for a while with some amazing
Yeah.
results as well. But tell us a little bit more about what Flame is, and if there's any folks out there who are interested in being a part of it, how they can do so.
Yeah, so Future Lutheran Administrators, Midwest Educators is where we came up with that FLANE acronym because we love our acronyms in the LCMS.
We
And
do.
it's a partnership with about 8 other districts here in this Great Lakes region. Obviously, the Wisconsins and Illinois and Indiana, Ohio, Eastern, now English, excuse me, and now Eastern is jumping on board too. And we meet in Ann Arbor 3 days for people that are thinking about administration and would it be a blessing, as well as those that are jumping into it for their first year. So we take 3 days and we just fire hydrant on them, all things what it means to be an administrator in a Lutheran school. And it's been a blessing. It's been great. It's led by all of us as ed execs. We all lead kind of a session, get to build some relationships with those individuals, and really just share with them of what it means to be that great position in the principal's office and early childhood directors too. So it's invite by your ed exec. So your ed exec kind of sends an invite saying you'd make a great candidate for this. So if anybody desires or thinks this might be something for them, reach out to your ed exec and say, hey, I heard about this Flame initiative. Do you think I'd be a great candidate for that? And have some dialogue with them. And it'll be June 15, 16, and 17 here in Ann Arbor.
All right, excellent. So again, if there's anybody out there who's considering whether administration is something that they want to pursue, definitely reach out to the district to talk to Travis and just get more information and pray about that because as we had mentioned earlier, we need effective administrators to be able to run our schools and there. While there is a calling and that's something that God places on our hearts, there's also some definite skills that
Yeah.
come into play that make successful administrators and to be able to connect with others who have been doing it and learn from their experiences is invaluable. All right, I think it's a good time to take a break, so we'll go ahead and do that now. We'll come back and change up the topic a little bit. Going to talk about some of the PD stuff that Travis does. You all didn't know Travis did a lot of professional development, but he is a font of knowledge, and we're going to tap into a
Yeah.
little bit of that
Right.
here on the second half of our podcast here today. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment with Travis Grulke. You're listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear today, please consider sharing our podcast with friends and colleagues in the industry. Again, thank you for listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast.
And welcome back to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. We're continuing our conversation with Michigan District Ed Exec Travis Grulke. Travis, I know you're a Tigers fan. I'm a Tigers fan. Dave, our producer, is a Tigers fan. During the break, we were talking about the Tigers. So Baseball season's just about to start again. This podcast is going to be released pretty close to the start of the regular season.
Okay.
Who are your World Series teams, and does one of them have an Old English D on the front?
I mean, we're all in. Chips are on the table for the Tigers right now. So if we can get some bats that do what they got to do, and some of our guys progress a little bit, I'm all for the Tigers being in the World Series. Now, can anybody take the evil empire, what they've done again in the offseason with the Dodgers? I don't know. I don't think in a 7 game series with the way the money that they spent and the lineup that they and the pitching staff they have, but baseball's a funny game. We get hot. Who knows? So I'm going to say Tigers, Dodgers, and I'll say Tigers in six. We'll see.
Well, everybody had their money on Venezuela for the World Baseball
Yeah.
Classic, and I just sat there thinking to myself when Japan lost, all of the execs who have all the money on the line were just begging the Lord, please, please, at least let the U.S. get to the finals.
Yeah. They needed it.
Because
They needed
because
it.
that Dominican Republic Venezuela championship would have just been absolutely massive for ratings in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun. That was a fun thing to watch too. Yeah.
All right, so as I had mentioned earlier, Travis is not only a guy who's looking out for schools in the state of Michigan and across the country and forging relationships with our politicians and folks in various places, but you also speak on a number of different topics. One of the things that I'll say that I really respect and admire about you, Travis, is you are very well read, especially for somebody as busy as you are, with as many irons in the fire as you have. The fact that you even have time to be able to pick up a book or listen to an audio book, depending on your method, is impressive. And so I always appreciate going to the conferences that Travis is at because he's sharing, this is what I've read in the last couple months, year, whatever the case may be, and he's got these recommendations for that. And one of the things that you're speaking on right now is one of the books that you've read. So tell us a little bit more about the what you're currently reading and what you're learning from that.
Yeah, well, I'm a language arts teacher, so I got this weird job that I always say that nobody knows what it means, but I'm a language arts teacher at heart, so read, 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 read as much as you can. And I try to do that mostly on my bike, exercise bike, thinking I'm gonna lose any weight, but I don't seem to because I don't eat right. So, but at least I exercise and maintain my eating habits. Um, but yeah, I love reading things. The big one that we're kind of wrestling with right now, and I'm leading a book study actually with our other ed execs across Synod, is called The Digital Delusion. And we kind of the country got just infatuated with Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, and obviously it created a national dialogue, which was needed. And it's been a blessing. And I think it's been a blessing to know that these screens that are in our kids' faces need to be regulated. And let's get them out of our schools in terms of cell phones and that kind of stuff. So that's been a blessing. So Jared Cooney Horvath, who's a neuroscientist, who's a brilliant guy. I've been following his stuff. I've read a few of his previous books. Um, and his newest one here is kind of a take off of Jonathan Haidt's book, but it puts it in an education perspective and has all the research that shows we, and I'm guilty of this as a principal in the 2000s, the arms race for technology, right? That we're going to brag about being one to one, and here's what our tech can do, and here's what our tech does, without any research to actually show that it's effective for students in education. We just assume we put the tech in the teachers and kids' hands and they're going to learn. Kids are going to learn no matter what. But is it enhancing learning? Ooh, that's pretty debatable. And that's what he's raising in this book is how are we reevaluating and really looking at the tech in our schools? How are we making sure the old school handwriting and analog and all that kind of stuff is still there?
Mm.
Because that has been proven to, in many cases, be a better way to deliver education content. Now, I'm not one of these people that say get rid of all tech either. I think there's extremes on both ends.
Sure.
I think there's that balance, and we're going to be now, I think, working with our administrators in the coming years to really do a better job evaluating the tech we're using in our schools. Is it beneficial for students? Are they learning in spite of it, or is it actually enhancing their learning? And how do we do that and evaluate those policies and principles?
Now, here's a twist that I wanted to throw past you on this as we were preparing for our conversation today. I was doing a little bit of looking into the book. I've not read it, but I was thinking back to COVID again. Uh, I
Mhm.
spent a lot of time working in my house, the office I'm currently sitting in right now. And my daughter's bedroom is just on the other side of the wall here, and she basically spent the second half of her sophomore year in that
Yeah.
room doing all of her work, or freshman year. I forget. It's been it's been a long time, and I'm not a math guy. So anyway, uh, as she was going through that, I just recall prior to COVID, we began to see educators starting to put a call out there that we need to slow down the technology. We need to be more judicious in our use. So this idea was already being felt back in the late 2019, 18, 19, that kind of area. And then COVID hit. And then it had to be technology. Everything was technology because you were
Mhm.
streaming your classes and you were on Teams sending in your homework and all the rest of those sorts of things. Do you feel COVID, because of the necessity to get back into the technology, kind of threw us back a little bit in this process? And now we're starting to try and wean ourselves back off of that. I mean, we all had to learn technology, in a
Yeah.
instant to survive the pandemic and keep our schools thriving. Now, what we learned there has become a part of what we do. More business meetings are happening online. More people are working remote, although we're starting to see some tugging back to getting people back into the office and not so much in a remote. It had to have the same impact or a similar impact in our schools. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that, or what does does Dr. Horvath speak on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, completely that COVID thrust us into, a ton of tech. Now, ask any educator, 99% of them are going to say, ugh, it was a horrible way to educate students. It was not effective. And we had to do it. We were forced to do it. Would we go back to doing it? Man, I think it would be kicking and screaming. You'd have to have something pretty major for us to even think about doing that again, because we
Sure.
know it's not beneficial for students. And we're seeing over and over and over again teacher relationships with students, what a fantastic teacher does in face-to-face ministry and education with those kids. That is the be all end all for education. You can give the greatest teacher minuscule resources, and those students are going to learn because of that education that's happening in that classroom. And that's where our money should be going, right? Into teacher development, into some of those tried and true principles that we know really bring education and deliver education in a great way for students. Now, tech can still be used in some certain instances and in different ways, especially in different parts of our country, and in delivering some classes and content that they normally could not receive. But man, I'm really reevaluating a typical third grade classroom. How much tech is actually needed in that room? And that's going to be the big question I think we're going to see here in the coming years.
And I agree with you completely on the idea that technology, it shouldn't be completely banned. There is
Mhm.
still a time and a use and a place for it. Uh, but I'm gonna go way back to the dark days before the internet when VCRs and DVD players were the threats, I guess, or the technologies. Um, I'm a history major, but like you, English is my minor, so I also have a real passion for that. And when I was teaching middle school, I used to do a unit on Shakespeare every year with the kids. And so one of the things that we did, whenever someone teaches a novel that's been turned into a movie, it always seems like the watching of the movie is the great reward. At the end of the unit, we're gonna have a day
Yeah.
and bring in some snacks and watch the movie. And the kids all fall asleep or talk or do other things, and the movie gets watched and the teacher gets to grade papers for an hour and a half while everyone's kind of disengaged. And I always thought that was a terrible way to do it because, especially with Shakespeare, because you want to immerse the kids in the language because that there's just so much there, and to be able to get them to see the poetry in what Shakespeare wrote. I had the side by side, so I had a modern English version to help with comprehension. But there were times where we'd go through certain scenes, and instead of showing the film at the end as just the reward, I would get a version, say, of Hamlet, and we would watch that as we were looking at a scene. So if we
Yeah.
were going through something where the language part was particularly difficult, or they couldn't gain the inflection of how the actor was speaking the line, let me show you this minute and a half snippet of what's happening to help you comprehend what he's saying. Or maybe you don't understand what he's trying to get at in the words on the paper, but watch him deliver it and see if that doesn't help with the comprehension. So I was constantly throwing those little bites in to the point where you couldn't really watch the movie at the end because you'd already seen enough chunks of it throughout that it didn't make it as enjoyable of a view. But the goal was to understand the
Yeah.
story, to understand the
Mhm.
the the nuances of how the line gets delivered as opposed to just being read off the page. So I always felt that that was a more effective use of it as opposed to, again, a party at the end that nobody's really engaged in anyway.
Yeah.
Is there a way to take that same thrust and utilize that with some of the technologies that we have? Are we seeing that educators are finding the latest, the greatest, the newest program or app or whatever, and we'll just give it to the kids and they'll thrive? But there's
Well,
no engagement, there's no oversight, there's no interaction.
correct. And AI is throwing that in a whole other realm. I
Oh,
mean, that
sure.
exact question that you just brought up, like how much are we allowing and giving, and do we even use it or do we not use it? And man, again, Jared in his book is going to argue that AI should not be in our schools. It should be a supplement that teachers use to allow them to do better instruction and to free up their time to do better instruction in classrooms.
Agreed.
So enhance an email, great, but not to say, okay, students, do your paper and just plug in your prompts and let it spit out a 5 paragraph essay for you. That's not what it's for. So he talks a lot about the novice and the expert. You, as an expert in your content, can use AI in your content area because you can vet what comes out of it. A seventh grade student has no expertise in anything, and shouldn't be using this as a tool to create something that they say is their own.
Mhm.
So this debate's going to be just blowing up here in the next. It is now, but in the coming years, and how we stay on top of it, how we use it in an ethical way, but how we just do a better job having dialogue with our parents and families and students and educators about what is best for students. And if you really ask that question, what's best for students, not me as a teacher or educator, what's best for students, we might not always see what's happening in the classroom as evidence of that.
And I think that's hitting the nail on the head there, Travis, because somebody has to view it from that perspective because nobody else is going to naturally just do that. The
Yeah.
student themselves are going to look at that in terms of a very short-sighted benefit. Can I get AI to write my paper? Yes. Okay,
Hmm.
now the paper is done. I don't have to think about it, worry about it, and unfortunately, I didn't learn anything through it.
Yeah.
The developers of the software, they're all about the monetization.
Correct.
If they can add to their profits, that's what they want to do because they're trusting that the user is going to find the way to use it effectively. And I suppose that's a fair approach if we all understand that, that it's buyer beware in terms of policing it and using it most effectively. But then that really leaves it in the hands of the parents or the teachers to be the ones to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
The parents at home to ensure that the kids aren't just using that as a crutch or as a way of getting through completion without learning from the process. And then obviously the professional in the relationship is the teacher, and they're ultimately responsible for making sure that the child's learning and not just using that as a crutch. So it's critically important that the teachers take on that view of it because they're really the one left standing in the gap to fill
Hmm.
it.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And we should be training students in discernment and wisdom and all those, they call them soft skills. I hate that term, but all those skills that they need. And they'll pick the tech up. They'll get the tech up. But if they got some great students that have all those other skills, they can apply that towards whatever tool and whatever new tech is thrown in their face. Yeah.
So, any recommendations as far as just some simple basic things that teachers, administrators, or even parents can and should be doing to help temper the use, not completely,
Yeah.
take the kids' phones and, and lock them in a drawer, but ways that they can help the students have that balance between, yeah, you can use your phone for texting your friends later, but when it comes to learning, this is an appropriate tech use, and this is taking it too far.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm just this is a black and white thing, not a gray area. Cell phones in our schools shouldn't be there. Boom, bell to bell, get them out. Now laptops and all those things, yeah, those can be used in some good ways. But that still should be in supplement to that pen paper that I'm not a digital textbook guy. I am a hard textbook in your hands so I can spatially see it, and Jared's stuff argues for that as well quite a bit. Um, but I think teachers and educators need to be looking at, just take a week in dialogue. What tech am I using? What tech are my students using? And just get a good understanding of, throughout this week, how much time was spent on that. And could some of that time be used in a different way? Could some of that content be delivered in a different way? We do know the great areas that it helps out with is, right, some of those foundational pieces. As I'm learning some of my math tables or doing some of that skill and drill type stuff, technology can be very beneficial in some of those areas. Uh, but many other areas, it's not really needed. So we gotta be having those discussions and getting, it's just a log of how it's being used opens my eyes up as a teacher of, whoa, how much is actually happening in my room or not.
Excellent, great advice. Travis, if anyone out there listening would want to reach out, connect with you to talk more about this or some of the other topics that you speak on, again, I know you've got a pretty hectic schedule, but I've also seen that you're doing some speaking to different organizations and sharing some of that information. What's the best way for them to reach out and to learn more about some of the things that you might be able to help them with?
Yeah, I mean, our Michigan District website, michigandistrict.org.org, all spelled out. That's where I'm gonna get my email address, just first name, period, last name at michigandistrict.org. Can shoot me an email anytime. Would love to dialogue and to talk more.
All right. Excellent. Travis, again, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you fitting this conversation into your schedule. Have a great rest of the spring here as we wrap up the school year. Enjoy the NCAA tournament until the championship game. I think that'd be the only time that our two squads
I'm not
would
sure our
interact
state
at
could
that
take
point.
that if we face each other in the final. We don't think we could take it.
I don't think the state of Michigan could take it, to be
No,
perfectly honest. But
no.
win or lose, the post-game handshake would be very, very fun.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
All right. Thanks again, Travis.
All right.
Appreciate the time. Blessings again as you finish up the year. And again, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
And again, thanks for those of you who tuned in and listened again today. Please continue to give us a like on the different platforms where we're at, and share this with other folks so they too can join the conversation. But blessings in the rest of your days as well. You've been enjoying the Lutheran Special Education Ministry sponsored Lutheran Education Podcast.
Thank you for listening. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. For more information about LSEM, go to our website at luthsped.org. You can follow us on X by going to www.x.com/LSEM1873 or on Facebook at facebook.com/LSEM1873. If you're on Instagram, you can find us by going to @LSEM1873. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. Did you enjoy today's podcast? Want to help get the word out? Please leave us a review on the app you're using to listen today.